Fortnite Season 4 is only a month away now, with the official end date of Season 3 currently scheduled for August 27th. If all is to actually go to plan, then that means we should be seeing a new season before September. And with everything so close, one of the biggest mysteries yet to be solved is the fate of our golden boy, Midas. Midas was last seen stranded on a raft in the middle of the ocean, and he was then eaten by a shark led by Meowscles. And since then, he has yet to make another appearance. But despite being assumed dead by most, there is some evidence around the map that seems to be suggesting he is actually alive. There's a boat in the northwestern section of the map which has ghost logos on it, along with an image of Midas. And most notably of all, there's been a gold-plated truck spotted at Risky Reels. This could hardly be the work of anyone else, so it feels safe to assume that our old pal isn't actually gone. And so with that in mind, today we'll be analyzing the iconic character Midas and speculating what just might be in store for the man with the golden touch. But before we get into it, this video is brought to you by my second channel. We're getting super close to 50,000 subscribers, so it would be awesome if you could go subscribe to that channel after you're done watching this video. Top link in the description. Anyway though, with that said, let's get into it. So, the first time we see any indication of Midas' existence is at the end of Chapter 2, Season 1. While the Chaos Agent, who we looked at last week, was the big player of that season, Midas started making his presence known during this period. The middle house on the island was seemingly normal, apart from serving as a brief home to the Storm King. That is until we started seeing some of its features turn gold. It was little things like a toilet or a TV, but this was foreshadowing of what was to come. Midas was establishing a base, and it seems like he first made contact here well before the creation of the agency. Now, as to where Midas originated from, it's hard to say, but the most likely scenario is that this is his home island. The reason being is that there is little other to suggest otherwise. In fact, the only thing that we could go off of is that he had contact with Lynx since Season 7. But given everything else, this doesn't seem like enough evidence to say that he was in the Chapter 1 map. And so while we can't say for sure either way, there just isn't much to suggest that the Season 2 island isn't his home. So while signs of Midas first began in Season 1, it wouldn't be until after the end of that season where he would start making big moves. We talk about this more in depth in our big Chapter 2 storyline video, but we will cover it here briefly. So first, Midas starts getting members of Ego to join his team, and he established a new section of Ego called Ghost. These groups effectively join his main and pre-existing faction called the Agency. The Agency had been spying on Ego and Alter during Season 1. He also had strongholds set up around the map, an oil rig, a yacht, the shark, the grotto, and a central intelligence building called the Agency. All of this, as it last seems, was in an attempt to defeat Alter, the Chaos Agents group. We would come to find out later that this was not the case, however. Season 2 of Fortnite begins and Midas finally gets to work. At the very start of the season, Midas begins planting double agents into Alter's elite task force known as Shadow. He first has Brutus pretend to defect from the Agency and join the Chaos Agent, converting the grotto into a stronghold for Shadow. Later, in one of his most impressive moves, he has TNTina join Alter as well. Knowing they were about to take the rig, he had her arm it with explosives, and during the assault, she set it to go off. This destroyed a base that Midas had already lost and firmly embedded Tina into Alter. But while at first it seemed like Midas simply wanted to beat Alter, we later learned the true depth of his strategy. And that's because Midas happened to be one of the few people to discover the truth of his reality. Midas somehow became aware that he himself is a simulation, and that he, along with the rest of the Fortnite characters, were stuck in some sort of loop. What's even more fascinating is that he also learns of the existence of a reality one level up from his. Think Inception with realities within realities. Except in this case, it's all contained within a computer simulation. So with this knowledge, he then begins planning to reach this upper reality. He has Jules, a highly skilled engineer, and most likely his sister, create a machine called the Doomsday Device. At the time, we didn't know what this device was, and he had intended to keep it that way. So while at the time this was very confusing, confusing, we now know that Midas wanted to use this device to break through the simulation and get out of his loop, moving into the office dimension. This was his main goal, and it seems like everything else that was happening on the island was just merely meant to be a distraction. We know this because in the end, after the device event happened, it was revealed that Midas is a member of Shadow. And so knowing that Midas also had control over Ego and Ghost, this shows us that he was essentially controlling everything. The assaults on the rig, all the manipulation and spying, all of it was led out by Midas. Chaos Agent, Lynx, and all the other characters that he had trophies of were people working for him. And with this knowledge, it then doesn't make any sense in the plan of the simulation to do this. Why would you start a war against your own two factions? And so with that knowledge, it then seems most likely that he created his own war to distract not only us, but the developers of his simulation from what he was trying to achieve. Now, sadly, Midas's plan did not work. While the Doomsday device was powerful, it seems like the office of Agent Jonesy was able to get a hand on the situation before he could break free. The device created a storm, ultimately causing a giant flood, but the developers were able to act quick enough to stop the giant wall of water from destroying everything. They were not quick enough, however, to stop the device entirely. For moments, Midas's device actually worked. Fortnite characters ascended into the office and were even given a brief period to interact with Agent John Jones. The developers had acted fast enough, however, and so this was only a momentary glimpse. Simulations were then sent back down into the Battle Royale island and spawned once again on the battle bus. Now, perhaps the return to this bus is what looping actually is. Looping has been mentioned a few times, and it's a very interesting topic. And so it's possible that this was the first time we actually got to experience a loop firsthand. And so while it is an interesting topic, I think it's probably best we save that for another video. So let's get back to Midas. After the events of the Doomsday device, Midas is last seen getting eaten by a shark. And if I'm gonna be honest here, this was an extremely disappointing end for such an important character. Considering how much Midas had done, he is debatably the most impactful single character in all of Fortnite. And so to end his arc where we don't see him in the event and he just gets killed in a laughable manner was frustrating to a lot of people, especially those who had worked super hard to understand the storyline. But it's still possible that there's more to his story, and I for one certainly hope so. We know that in Chapter 2, Epic has been doing a better job of extending character arcs. In Chapter 1, characters like Singularity, the Ice King, and the Scientist only existed for their respective season. They would always come what they came to do, and then there would be some awkward, unsmooth transition into the next season with a brand new skin. But Chapter 2 has been extending character roles quite a bit. The Chaos Agent was teased in Season X, has existed in 1 and 2, and it's entirely possible he's still around in 3. Jules was hinted last season, and now we see her taking the reins for Season 3. And so the reason I bring this up is that it seems incredibly likely that the same thing will happen for Midas. Midas emerged at the end of Season 1 and was the top character of Season 2. But already we're seeing some really strong hints that he isn't done just yet. For a brief period of time, there was a truck at Risky Reels that was plated gold, just like the toilet and TV of the Island House. And the only thing more compelling than that is that, well, now it's gone. So obviously someone with a motive to hide this gold-plated thing moved it. Perhaps Midas accidentally touched the truck while scouting out the Authority, and he needed to just have it removed to continue laying low. Or perhaps someone else had it removed. It's possible that Jules also has the Golden Touch ability, and if that were the case, maybe she doesn't want people to find out about this. Maybe that's the real reason she always wears gloves. Plus, if Jules has the Golden Touch, then that would also support the theory that these two are siblings. Or maybe even Jules had it removed because she doesn't want people to begin to rally behind Midas once more. She now has all the power, and a return from Midas might challenge her authority. So it seems pretty likely that one of the two are true. Midas is still alive, or another character, most likely Jules, has the Golden Touch ability. The two are not mutually exclusive, however, so both could be true as well. But another character we need to consider is Oro. Oro is a golden skeleton king, part of the Midas's Revenge set. He appeared early in Season 2, and ever since he has been a mysterious character in the Fortnite storyline. While it's clear he has some connection to Midas, the exact relation is still unknown. So with that said, let's actually examine all possible explanations between the connection of Oro and Midas. The first possibility is that Oro is Midas, but this could actually take form in a few possible ways. It could be symbolically, where Oro could represent the cost of Midas's greed. Oro's in-game description reads golden treasure and eternal obsession. So maybe it's merely a symbolic connection, implying that greed is an endless pursuit which will run you into your grave. It's possible that Oro is entirely symbolic in his relation to Midas and doesn't actually pertain to the storyline. But another theory is that Oro exists as a sort of true self of Midas. That is to say, perhaps in Midas's pursuit of wealth and power, he tried to gain the powers of Oro himself, but in the process became him. In the iconic Disney classic Pirates of the Caribbean, the pirates appear to be normal people, but moonlight reveals them to actually be walking corpses. Maybe Midas is long dead, but he's been cursed. Perhaps his greed has literally killed him, but he continues to live on. This would also tie in nicely, as Oro and Midas both have a scar across their eye. The scar, along with golden theme, seems to be the biggest piece of evidence which link the two together. And perhaps what actually got him his powers and curse also gave him the scar. It's also worth noting that in the trailer which introduced helicopters, we see Meowscles sitting on that helicopter with Oro. That seems very odd considering he was meant to be Midas's bodyguard, and so maybe in this scene he is still acting as such. Another possibility is that Oro is what Midas is going to become. Oro's cosmetic set is called Midas's Revenge. This title is still a little bit ambiguous, but there seems to be one probable meaning behind this. The apostrophe at the end of the name indicates ownership, implying that Midas will have revenge. Midas has been forgotten about, and so maybe he will be working to gain power again. It's possible that people don't actually want him back, so this could mean that Midas will come back in the form of Oro to spite the inhabitants. One thing to consider is that the way Midas's Revenge is titled, it almost implies that they're separate entities. The way it's worded almost makes it sound like Oro is a thing which Midas will unleash on the island to achieve his revenge. But in this scenario, given the scar and strong connection to gold, it would seem most likely that Midas would return as Oro to exact revenge himself. It's also worth noting that Midas is part of the Golden Ghost set, which only further implies the Oro is his true self idea. I don't know about you guys, but Golden Ghost seems to imply to me that Midas is dead. So with all that considered then, the most likely scenario seems to be Midas is dead, but there's some sort of curse or power keeping him alive. So maybe the Midas that we see is a ghost, while Oro could be the skeleton of the once ambitious human. That would also make sense as to why Midas is still around despite being eaten by a shark. Maybe he literally can't die. Overall, there's a lot of moving parts here, but I think it's a pretty sound theory. The only other thing to suggest against this is actually the timing of which Oro was released, which was back in Season 2. It seems like for all this to add up better, it would have made more sense to drop Oro around now. Still though, it is the theory which has the most weight behind it, and I think it's the most likely. Midas is Oro in some extent. Now, with all that said, why don't we see what this means for the future of Fortnite? Seeing as it's almost confirmed that Midas is alive in some way, I think it's safe to say we will be seeing a new skin style for him. It's totally possible that he could be in the Season 4 Battle Pass, kind of like how we've seen Bunker and Scuba Jonesy. But most likely, it's that he will return as a skin to the store with some sort of new variation. As for the storyline though, I truly think there's going to be more with this guy. We never even got to see Midas in the Season 2 event, so it would be really cool if Oro or Midas were to actually do something this time around. And at the very least, maybe we'll get more information in the Season 4 trailer. Until then though, you should consider subscribing to my second channel, Nifty Smith. The top link in the description will take you over to our most recent video, which is the first episode in a Terraria Let's Play. We're switching it up a little bit, but I think it's exactly what you guys wanted, so it would be awesome if you could go check it out. Also, it would be great if you could help us reach our goal of 50,000 subscribers. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys soon. As always, peace out, you frickin' nerds.